Good afternoon, friends. In this CEC Gurukul lecture series, this is the third part of the process costing. In my previous lecture on the process costing, I talked about what is process costing, characteristics of the process costing, how it is different from the job costing, and what is the procedure of preparing the accounts, preparing costing in the process account. That was the discussion which we discussed. And we also talked about the losses, that is the normal loss and the abnormal loss. In continuation of that, today I will start with talking about abnormal effectiveness or abnormal loss. Let me recapitulate briefly what I told you about losses in my previous lecture, because I am continuing with that lecture, so I am just recapitulating. I told you that in every process, in the process industry, normally in most of the business, whether it is a sugar industry, whether it is a cement industry, right, whether it is a chemical industry where the process costing is normally being used, the nature of the business is such that when you convert input into output, when you process in a particular process account, there is bound to be some losses that takes place. What I mean to say by this is that supposing you put 100 units of inputs, the output which you get, output of that process, I am not talking of the finished product, I am saying output of that process, may not be 100 units itself. There are likelihoods that there can be some process losses that can take place. This process losses is because of the nature of the business. Like for example, if it is a chemical business, chemical industry, some chemical when you process, it evaporates. Suppose in an industry where there is some scrap, there is bound to be some scrap that takes place. So the loss which is bound to take place, which is normal, which is uncontrollable, that loss is called normal loss. When your input is 100 units, and supposing the cost is 1000 rupees of all the raw material, labor and overhead cost in that process, I am taking very simple figure. So if the cost is 1000 rupees and the nature of the business is such that when you convert this input of 100 units into output, there is bound to be losses to the extent of 10%. That is, output in all probability will going to be 90 units. So it is the general costing principle that the normal loss is being borne by the good units produced. So that is, if I said 100 units are 100 kg of input is being put and the total cost of this 100 units is 1000 rupees. When I say total cost means that material cost, labor cost, overhead, all the cost of that process put together is 1000 rupees. So this 1000 rupees cost I will divide by 90 units. That is, I will presume that this 1000 rupees is the cost of 90 units. That is, the good units will bear the cost of the normal loss. That is a basic accounting and the costing principle. Coming to the abnormal loss, I said when you put 100 units, you are going to get 90 units, that is 10% is the normal loss. But suppose when the output in this process takes place, output does not take place of 90 units, output takes place of 80 units. So where this 10 units have gone? This is called abnormal loss. That is 100 units minus 10 units. Ideally, your output should have been 90 units, right? Your normal output should have been 90 units. But in this business, if the output is 80 units, we call this 10 units as abnormal loss. And again, I will say in the process costing, the fundamental principle is that if there is any abnormal loss takes place because of abnormal reasons, like it may be carelessness of the workers, it may be of the poor quality of the raw material, it may be poor maintenance of the machine, it may be any reason. Because of any reason, if abnormal losses takes place, in our example this abnormal loss is 10 units. So what we will do is, we will take this cost of abnormal loss to the costing profit and loss account. That is, this cost of 10 units will not be borne by the good units produced, that is 80 units. So that the cost does not escalate because of inefficiency. This is how you treat the abnormal loss. Now, if in my example I said the output should have been 90 units, but supposing the output is 95 units. So, this 5%, 5 units that have extra been produced, extra than the normal, it is called abnormal gain or abnormal effectiveness. So, what it means is, see, normal process losses represents the loss that would be expected under normal conditions. It is an estimated figure. That is, as I said in our just given example, that suppose the normal loss is 10%, right. So, it means whatever the number of inputs you put, the output is going to be the input minus that normal loss percentage. That is, in our example it is 10%. So, output should have been 90 units. So, the actual loss may be greater or less than the normal loss. Normal loss I just said is 10 units in our example. So, if it is greater than that 90 or units, that is, if the loss is more than 10 units, it is called abnormal loss. So, if the actual loss is greater than the normal loss, it is known as abnormal loss. But if the actual loss is less than the normal loss, a gain is obtained which is termed as abnormal gain or effectiveness. I was talking of this 100 units example. So, if you put 100 units, your normal loss percentage is 10%, ideally your output should be 90 units, right. So, if we produce 95 units, these 5 units extra which you have produced is called abnormal gain or abnormal effectiveness. So, the lesser loss could be because of unexpected supply of better quality of material, means the normal material which you normally get, right. If you get certain extra good quality of the material which you normally don't able to procure, that it may be the reason of extraordinary output, means more than the normal output. It may be extraordinary supervision or maintenance of machinery, extraordinary efficiency achieved by workmen, whatever the reasons may be. If the output is more than the normal output, it is called abnormal gain or abnormal effectiveness. So, the value of abnormal gain is calculated in a manner similar to the abnormal loss, right. So, I will be talking this, I will be explaining this with an help of an example. So, it is shown on the abnormal gain is shown on the debit side of the process account. When you prepare the abnormal gain account, it is shown on the debit side of the process account and credit side of the abnormal gain account. So, like abnormal loss, it is ultimately transferred to the costing profit and loss account. So, if somebody asks you how you treat abnormal gain, your simple answer can be that abnormal loss or the abnormal gain is being transferred to the costing profit and loss account. Now, let us talk of an illustration, an example, and by this illustration or by this example, we will try to understand that how you prepare the abnormal gain account, how you prepare the normal loss account, and how do you show abnormal gain in the accounting. So, for simplicity reason, we have taken a very simple example, that is, the figures are small and simple figures directly which can be easily calculated. So, if it says that in a business 1000 units were introduced into the process A, it can be any process, you can name it any name, you may say 001, 002, any in the name of the, each process is being numbered or named. So, 1000 units were introduced in process A at a cost of rupees 20,000, means you may call it a raw material cost of 20,000. The additional cost incurred for the process were direct labor 10,000 rupees, direct expenses 5,000 rupees and manufacturing overhead 3,000 rupees. So, these are the expenses that has taken place in this process, 20,000 in form of material, 10,000 in form of labor, 5,000 in form of expenses and 3,000 in form of overhead. A normal loss of 10% of the input is expected. This is all an example. So, we are presuming that in this business, in this process, 10% of the input is the expected normal loss, and the scrap which you get, see, normal loss, there are two types. One which is not visible, which does not have any saleable value, like suppose in a chemical business, if something evaporates, so that is not saleable, so you do not get any value out of it. But sometime in a business, whatever the losses that takes place, the loss is being sold as scrap, right. So, that can fetch you some value. So, here is in this example which we are taking, it is given that scrap value of is rupees 2 per unit. The actual output for the period was 950 units. Assuming no work in progress in the process, prepare the process A account and show how abnormal loss will be treated in accounts. Now, this is the suppose situation in a business, how to prepare the process account and how to show the abnormal gain account. This is the point. So, here it should be not abnormal loss, it should be abnormal gain. So, process A account, as I said, you write down all the cost on the debit side, material cost, DL means direct labor, DE means direct expenses, MFG means manufacturing expenses, because of the shortage of space I have written in a short form. So, material, labor and direct expenses, manufacturing overhead we have written on the debit side. Since it is given that 1000 units are being processed, so input is units is 1000. So, what you are saying that there are 3 columns on each of the side, particulars column, unit column and the amount column, rupees or amount, whatever you call it, right. So, material, labor, manufacturing overheads, all these expenses are given, and then normal loss, as this question says that 10% of the units are being presumed as normal loss. So, 10% of 1000 comes to be 100 units, and this 100 units NL means normal loss, PU means per unit. So, this 100 units will give you a scrap value of rupees 200, that is 2 rupees per unit. Now, the output should be, what is the output? Input minus normal loss, that should be the ideal output, where it should be the normal output that should have taken place. So, 1000 minus 100, I would say ideally the 900 units should be produced as in output, but what you see in this example, we are presuming that instead of 900, 950 units have been transferred to process next, that is you may call it process B account. So, this 50 units, that is extra output that has taken place, is called abnormal gain, AG for abnormal gain. Now, the question is how you value it. I said in my previous lecture also, and I am repeating here also, what you do is that you first add up all the expenses on the debit side, right. So, 20,000 plus 10,000 plus 5,000 plus 3,000, whatever the expenses are, whatever the total expenses of the process are, minus the scrap value of the loss, divided by the normal output or ideal output, or that output that should take place. So, I will say you add up 20, 30, 10, 35 and 38, right. So, 38,000 minus 200, right. So, this total cost minus value of normal loss, 38,000 minus 200 divided by normal output. Normal output means 1000 input minus 100, right. So, 900, that comes to be 42 rupees per unit. So, what you do, you value this 950 units as if no abnormal gain has taken place. So, I will say 38,000 minus 200 divided by 900 units, that comes to be rupees 42 per unit. So, this 950 units which have been transferred to the next process will be multiplied by 42 rupees, that comes to be 39,900. And this 50 units of extra output that has taken place, which is more than the normal, which is called abnormal gain, AG for abnormal gain, right. This will be also be valued as the value of the normal output is, that is in our example it is 42 rupees per unit. So, 50 units at the rate of rupees 42 per unit, that comes to be 2,100. So, this abnormal gain is 2,100. So, in this way, if there is an abnormal gain, you show it like this, right. So, once again I am repeating that normal cost minus normal output. Normal cost means you add up all cost minus the normal loss, right, and the normal loss, the scrap value of the normal cost divided by normal output, that should be the cost of the per unit. That per unit cost will be multiplied by the abnormal gain, multiplied by the output that is being transferred to the next process. So, now I am showing how you prepare normal wastage account or normal loss account. So, as you said, process as you can see here, to process A account 100 units is a loss. We have just made the entry 200 rupees. So, out of this 200 rupees, the sale of scrap, because these value, the units that you are selling is not actually 100 units, you are selling only 50 units, the output is 950 units. So, you are getting scrap value of only 100 only. So, by cash account, sale of scrap 50 multiplied by 2, that comes to be 100 rupees, and 100 rupees will be credited to the abnormal gain account. By abnormal gain account, 50 rupees at the rate of 2 per unit, means had this abnormal gain not taken place, you would have sold it in the market as a scrap value of 2 rupees per unit. So, that you charge from the abnormal gain account. So, 100 rupees is this value. So, this way you prepare normal loss account. Similarly, you prepare abnormal gain account. In an examination like situation, you are being asked, supposing they show prepare process account. So, my advice to you will be, when you prepare the process account, with that account, even if it is not being asked, because it does not take much of your time, you show in your exam, you show in your while solving the process, right, abnormal gain or normal loss account also. So, normal loss we have already explained, 50 units at the rate of rupees 200, right. By process A account 50 units 2100, which this value we have taken from the process account, right, and to costing means the balance amount will be transferred to the costing profit and loss account. What you are noticing here is the abnormal gain is of 2100, but the whole of this 2100 is not being transferred to the costing profit and loss account, because this 50 units, had this abnormal gain not taken place, you would have sold in the market as a scrap for rupees 100. So, only the balance figure will be transferred to the costing profit and loss account. So, this is the way you prepare the abnormal gain account. So, we have explained that how abnormal gain account is being shown in the books, how abnormal gain is being treated in the accounting. Once again, I will say that abnormal gain, if you ask me simply how you treat abnormal gain account, somebody asks you how you treat abnormal gain account, I will simply say that abnormal gain is being transferred to the costing profit and loss account. So, abnormal gain is the gain that takes place if the output takes place more than the normal output, that is called abnormal gain. Now, let us take one more illustration just to understand how you prepare process account, right. It is not abnormal gain account, but general process, because we have already discussed abnormal loss, abnormal gain, normal loss. Now, let me take an illustration example so that we can understand how you do it. The output in this business, in this industry, in a factory, the output of process A was 3000 units. This is the output, friends. Normally, when in an examination like situation, you be very careful to read what the word says. It is normally sometime in the anxiety, what we do, we know that in most of the questions first input is given. So, we sometimes misread it. So, please, these things are very important in an examination like situation. So, the output, it is the question says about the output. Output of process A was rupees 3000, was not rupees, was 3000 units. Normal loss allowed was 10% of input, abnormal loss was 600 units. That is, in this business, in this process, abnormal loss of 600 units has taken place. This is already given in your example. And you are given that material is at the rate of 5 per unit, labor rupees 4000, overheads 3500, wastage realized 2.50 per unit, means whatever the losses takes place, that realizes as a scrap value of 2 rupees 50 per unit. You are required to prepare process A account and abnormal loss account. So, if you read this example, what you find is that you are not being given inputs, how many units are being input, how many units are being put in the process account, right, in the process. So, first I will, through simple mathematical equation, I will try to find out what is the input. What you are given is output. Output is 3000 units. You are given that 10% is the normal loss in the business, 10% of input, and you are also given the abnormal loss is 600 units. So, I will just by having a small equation, I will able to solve how many number of inputs are being put. So, what you say is, what you can do is that number of units of the output of the process A is given 3000, but the number of units of input of raw material is not given. So, it is computed as shown below. Suppose the input is x units. So, the normal loss is 10%. So, I will say x by 10 is the normal loss, and output which is given in our example is 3000 units plus abnormal loss which is 600 is equal to 9x by 10, because output should be the input minus the normal loss which is x by 10. So, the output plus abnormal loss is equal to 9x by 10. So, 9x by 10 is equal to 3000 plus 600. So, 9x is equal to 36,000, x is equal to 4000. So, in this way you can find out how many units is the input. Now, take this process A account. Now, means up till now we have calculated how many units have been put as an input in this case. Normally you are being given input units. In this example, intentionally I have taken such an example where the input is not given, so that you can know that how to find out the input. So, we have just simply used a mathematical equation and find out inputs, right. So, now I am preparing the process account. It says the material cost is in your question is given. Material cost is rupees 5 per unit. Labor is 4000, overhead is 3500, wastage realized 2.50. Now, let us say material at the rate of MAT means material, right, 5 rupees per unit, 4000 is the units. And see, again I would say that in the process accounting, or for that matter in cost accounting, presentation of accounts is very important. So, please keep in mind that while you prepare any account, right, keep in mind that how the columns and the rows are to be divided. You please, presentation is very, very important in cost accounting. So, material at the rate of rupees 5, so 4000 units, the cost is 20,000 rupees, labor is 4000 rupees, and overheads O/DS means overheads. Overhead is 3000. This is all given figures. These are the input cost. Input cost means raw material cost, labor cost, and overhead cost. It says that 10% is the normal loss, right. So, 400 units, and which gives you a scrap value of 2 rupees 50 paisa. It comes to be 1000 rupees. And this question also, this example also talks about that abnormal loss. Normally in the questions which you get in an examination like situation, abnormal loss or abnormal gain is not given. But here in this question, abnormal loss figure is given. So, what you are being given is 600 units is the abnormal loss. Now, the point is how you will value the abnormal loss and output. So, you know it by now that what we do is you add up all the total cost of the debit side of the process account. That is, in our example, this material cost 20,000, labor cost 4,000, 3,500 is the overhead cost, that comes to be 27,500. So, what I will do, 27,500 minus this scrap value cost per unit, in order to find out 27,500 minus the scrap value. 400 units is the units, 2.50, that comes to be 1000 rupees. So, 27,500 minus 1000, that comes to be 26,500 rupees, right, divided by your normal output. What is normal output in our example? 4,000 minus 400, that comes to be 3,600. So, 27,500 minus 1000, that comes to be 26,100, right, sorry, 26,500 divided by your what do you call 4,000 minus 400, 3,600, that comes to be 7 rupees 36 paisa. So, at the rate of 7 rupees 36 paisa per unit, we will value the abnormal loss, and at the rate of 7 rupees 36 paisa, we will value the output. So, since in your example, in this example which we have taken, 600 is the abnormal loss, 600 multiplied by 7.36 comes to be 4,416, 4116, and 3000 multiplied by 7.36 comes to be PU means per unit 22,084 rupees. So, in this way you prepare the process account. Fine. So, what you find is, friends, what you have shown in this example is, I am not showing normal loss account and abnormal loss account, right. So, as we have done in the previous example, similarly you can prepare normal loss account and abnormal loss account. So, this is about your abnormal loss and the normal loss or the treatment of abnormal gain. Thank you very much.